Now all of those transformations to the camera that we've just looked at are all to the static camera, and that is to say that the camera itself isn't animating. Basically what we've been doing is going through this scene and taking a bunch of still photos from different angles. But what we want to move on to now is showing how you can actually animate the camera within a scene. Before we move on to that, I just want to point out there is one more control point that you can move on this camera, which is if you move to the outside corners, you'll see a little rotate symbol. And when you rotate the camera when you rotate it counterclockwise, it appears that the artwork moves clockwise, and as well with the opposite. And the reason why is because if you're tilting your camera counterclockwise, like in real life, you're looking at something through the camera, the picture itself is going to move in the opposite direction. Everything that we do with the camera is really relative to the camera frame because we're in the camera view. So when we zoom out, the frame size doesn't move. It's just that everything that's inside the frame moves. Because that frame, it's just like as if that frame were your TV set or the movie screen. Your TV set and the movie screen never change size. So that's what you can think of in terms of the camera view. Now that we're moving on to checking out how to move the camera, this could be termed the dynamic camera. It's also basically animating the camera. There's a few changes that we need to make to our interface. The most important thing is that we have to make sure that our timeline is visible. So mine's been hiding down here. I'm going to click on that little arrow, and now I have my workspace back the way I need it to do these camera moves. So we have to have the timeline, and we'll have to have the camera tool enabled. And the other thing next is the tool properties. So go to tool properties because we need to use camera keyframes to animate this camera. This is the panel that I'm going to be working on. I'm going to place in a couple of keyframes so that I can animate this camera move. The way I'm going to do that is by coming over here to the tool properties panel for the camera tool and click this button that says add a keyframe at the beginning of current panel. So that sort of establishes a starting point for us, and you can see with this green camera has been enabled as sort of the start point, let's say. And let me go to 33, we can see a little bit. If I click on the interface, I don't have my camera rotator yet, so one of the things I can do is come over here to go to the selected keyframe. The reason I need to do that is because my playhead is in the middle of the scene and my playhead is not over where the keyframe is. So if I were to move it now, I would create another intermediate space that I don't want to do. So let me press undo. I'm going to click on that camera and then go to selected keyframe, and my cursor, my playhead jumped back to where the keyframe is, and now I have the full camera controls available to me. So I'm going to do that again just so that you can watch the playhead. And right now I'll put my playhead in the middle. I'm going to say add a keyframe at the beginning of the scene. I'll click on the camera to make sure it's selected, but since I'm not at the beginning, I'll press this button, which is go to the selected keyframe. And now that I'm at the selected keyframe, it gives me an opportunity to change it. Now the fact is I don't want to change the first part of this camera move. I'm more interested in changing the end of the camera move because I like the way this starts. What I want to do is zoom in on our pirate guy. So to do that, I'm going to need a finishing place for that. So add a keyframe to the end of the current panel. And once again, if I want to manipulate this camera, I don't have any control points anymore. I need to actually have my playhead at this keyframe. You can see this is the selected keyframe because it's colored blue. Also, the keyframes that appear at the beginning of the scene, the beginning of the panel, and the end of the panel are half diamonds. Any keyframes in the middle will be full diamonds. But let's not lose track. I'm going to click on this. Camera frame is red for the stop position. And then I'm going to click on Go to Selected Keyframe, and automatically my playhead jumps over to that keyframe and I have full control of the camera. I'm going to use these various controls on the stop position of the camera to zoom in, to pan down, and then to rotate to a brand new position. So the first thing, to zoom, once again, I'm going to drag toward the center now that my scale tool is showing. So let's zoom way in. And then I'm going to pan down by grabbing the center point. And then to rotate my camera, I'm going to need to do that on the y-axis. And it makes it easy for me to do it here in the top view. Now you see there's no camera controllers in the top view, but to enable them, I'm going to click on the red dot representing my stop position. And now I've got some camera controllers, and if I want to easily rotate in the y-axis, I can turn that lens toward my pirate. And that's exactly what I was hoping for. I'm now going to maybe zoom in a little bit more and get a really nice shot of him. I could do some fine-tuning here by dragging down, and then I have a really nice shot. But what's best of all is if you watch the playhead, as I scroll through this scene, I can see a really nice looking multiplane effect as I zoom in from the establishing shot to our captain. That can be like a really nice dramatic reveal shot. So let's take a look at what it looks like by putting on the camera mask. And then I'm going to go to, I'm in the camera view, and I can go to the playhead, and because I just have this one scene selected, this one panel selected, I can hit play selection and watch what happens. Beautifully zooms in and stops on the pirate. Now once again, I had the pirate set to always face forward, but I didn't have the seagull. The seagull started to look a little bit flat, so if I wanted to, I can come over here to tool, not to tool properties, I can come over to the layer palette, find the seagull in my layers, find the bird, hit always face camera, and now when I scrub through this, you'll be able to see there's no distortion on the bird at all. So let's watch it again. There's two things I'm going to do now with this panel that's selected. Is I'm going to go up here to this toolbar, which is the Playback toolbar. I'm going to hit the loop button so we can enjoy watching this a couple of times. So let me go back. I'm going to hit the select tool just to get rid of the camera controls on it. And this is going to continue to loop it over again. And to make sure that we play selected, I'm either going to click this or press Shift and Return on the keyboard. Let's let her rip. Okay, get your popcorn, stand back and watch. And now, if we want to kind of get a view of, hey, does this work or not, that's what's nice about playing it on a loop. I can look at this and say, yep, that's exactly what I was looking for. It's a beautiful example of an animating camera.